One of the great pleasures in life is to embark on daring adventures, travel the pages of history, meet extraordinary people, explore the fantastical and the impossible. All of this through the great works of the author's pen, wrapped in the pages of living books. It is fall, the weather is beautiful, the leaves are turning, and I wanted to share with you today some amazing living books that we have been reading. We are a Charlotte Mason-inspired, literature-based homeschooling family, and being such, we read a lot of books. I wanted to give you a look at the books that we have read so far this fall. We started school a couple months ago, towards the end of August, and actually a couple of these are books that we finished that we were reading aloud over the summer. And the rest of them are books that we have read and finished so far this school year. I have 4 homeschoolers, so this might seem like a lot of books because there's 4 of them. Some we have read aloud together, and some of them have been readers that my kids have read themselves. We use a curriculum called Heart of Dakota, and between my 4 kids, we are using 3 of the Heart of Dakota guides this year. All of these books are from those Heart of Dakota guides. These are some really good books, and I'm excited to share them with you guys. If you're not familiar with Heart of Dakota, they go from preschool all the way through high school, and they have a series of guides which span an age range, and each of those guides builds off of the one before it. So your child steadily builds their skills, and they learn through amazing living books. We have really loved Heart of Dakota, and I am happy to share the books that we've been reading because there's not a whole lot of information in video form out there about Heart of Dakota. So let's get into these books. Okay, so the first books I'm going to share with you are books that my 2 girls have read on their own. The first, A Family Apart. This my older daughter read. This is a level 5-6. I label my books here so I can remember what they're from. This is a level 5-6 reading book, and it's about these children and their mother. Their father is no longer around, and they are living out east, and she's not able to provide for them. They're living in pretty terrible conditions. One of the boys ends up getting in a lot of trouble, and she has some connections with someone who's able to put them on the orphan train to bring them to families out west who need the help and are taking in orphans where they will have a better life. So these kids get separated, and the older daughter disguises herself and works to get the children back together. This is a wonderful story, and I highly recommend it, as does my daughter. My younger daughter read Riding Freedom, and this, if you have a horse lover around, of course, this is a wonderful book as well. This actually is kind of similar to the book her older sister read, in that this little girl is an orphan, and she actually runs away. She ends up disguising herself as a boy so that she can drive this stagecoach because she loves these horses. She's really good at driving these horses, and she goes through a series of adventures, and it's a very good story. My daughter loved it, and this is a level 4-5 from Heart of Dakota, one of their Drawn into the Heart of Reading books. So my daughter that read this is 10, and she really enjoyed it. She did a great job with it. Highly recommend it. Wonderful book. These next 2 books I read aloud with my girls. We have kind of a set reading time that we do in the evening before bed every night. My 2 girls share a bedroom, and my 2 little boys share a bedroom. So I have been reading aloud to them in their separate bedrooms at bedtime for a very long time, and it's just a habit that we're into. That might seem like a lot, but it's a habit. I don't think of it as being a lot anymore, just because we've done it for so long and we really enjoy it. So this one by the Great Horn Spoon, this is a funny story. This is a good story, very good story for boys or girls or your whole family. It's set in the time of the California Gold Rush, and it is a boy and his butler end up taking a ship and leaving their family without telling them. They left them a note, I believe, and they sailed around the tip of Africa all the way to California and hoping to strike it rich and be able to save their family home and all that. It is a very good story. There are pictures in this, and they're fun little drawings. Some kids might think they're not such good drawings maybe, but my daughter enjoyed them. They're just little stick drawings, and it's a good story. This is another one that I highly recommend. It was a great story to read together. This next one is called Gone Away Lake. Gone Away Lake, I wasn't so sure if we were gonna love this at first, but once we got into it, my girls absolutely loved this. It was definitely one that it was requested, and it was, can we read just one more chapter? Just one more chapter. No, don't stop there. Great book, and there is a sequel. And we found that out at the end of the story, and my girls have been begging me to get the sequel because they would like to read the next story. So this is Gone Away Lake, and another one that we just, we really loved. These children find an abandoned, it's not a lake anymore. It used to be a lake, but now it's a swamp, and there's these abandoned houses there, and they find some unlikely friends in this story. And it's just, it was a very fun story. It was mysterious. It was almost a little spooky at times, but there was nothing questionable in it as far as the spookiness. It was just, it was a great kind of mystery adventure, and it kept you wondering what's going to happen next. A little bit suspenseful. That's the word I'm looking for. It was suspenseful, but it was very good. And we will probably find the sequel and read it eventually. Very good book, Gone Away Lake. We loved it. These next books are books that I read with my little boys. They are 9 and 7, just turned 9, so my son was 8 for most of these books. But these are ones that we read aloud that were part of our curriculum this year, or well, one of them we finished from over the summer. But this first one is George Washington, and that is by Ingrid and Edgar Perrin D'Aulaire. I'm not sure I pronounced any of that right, except for the D'Aulaire. I've heard that enough times. D'Aulaire, any of the books by D'Aulaire are wonderful books. George Washington, my kids loved this. This is one that they didn't want to put down. We read it over a few days. It has a lot of pictures in it. Some are black and white. Some are in color. My kids, they just really liked this. They like these D'Aulaire books. They're good books. The Trumpet of the Swan. We just finished this one, and this was excellent. It's about a swan, Lewis, who is born without being able to make any sound. So through a series of events, he gets a trumpet. He learns to play his trumpet, and Lewis here becomes his friend, and he's actually in this picture. It shows part of the story. It talks about Lewis as just a young cygnet. He couldn't say hello, so he pulled his shoelace, and they were friends forevermore, the rest of the story. So this I highly recommend also. It is a great read aloud, or a book that your kids could read on their own if they're a little older, but wonderful read aloud. We really enjoyed this one. If you have hot air balloon fans, this one was also an excellent story. The 21 balloons. I've had this sitting on our shelves for a very long time, and we have not had the chance to read it yet until now, until this fall. We picked it up and we read it, and my boys absolutely loved it again. It's about a man who, he builds his own balloon. He draws up the design, he sets it up. It's fascinating. This is a good one to do also if you are just interested in learning more about hot air ballooning. And he takes his balloon, and things don't go exactly as he had wanted for this balloon trip, and he finds himself on this island, and on this island he meets these people that are extraordinary. They're a little bit different, and their way of life is different, and it's a very good story. This one is another highly recommended. We really enjoyed the 21 balloons. And then there's Charlotte's Web. We read this one over the summer. We finished it as we were starting school this year. It's a classic. This is definitely one that you need to read. At some point with your children, you should read Charlotte's Web. It is a wonderful story. I read this with my girls years ago, and it did not disappoint once again. I still remember to this day when we had put this book down. It was the end of the story. My girls, we were saying goodnight, and they both stuck their little bottoms up in the air and pretended to float away and said goodbye. If you've read this book, you know where that comes from at the end of the story. Very good book. It might get you a little emotional because there's of course some sad parts, but it is a wonderful read. Okay, now these next ones I'm going to share with you are from Heart of Dakota's Preparing Hearts for His Glory, and they are the first several books that I have read to my daughter aloud, and she has read herself. So this one, Life in the Great Ice Age. This is a wonderful book, and I love the way that Heart of Dakota writes it into the guide, because the beginning of this book, well, probably 2/3 of this book is story. It's in story form, and the last third actually goes into archaeological facts and things about things that are found in the story. So, for instance, here it talks about the woolly mammoth in Siberia, and it gives you some information about things that have been found, what was expected, that these animals ate, what they did, where they lived, all that, and then it correlates with the story, which is in the beginning of the book here. The first about 2/3 of the book is this story about Japheth and his tribe, and it's a fabulous book. It's a really good read. I highly recommend this one. And there is another one that goes after this. It's somewhat of a sequel. I will have to look up what it's called. I can't think of it right now. But it is scheduled as one of the extensions for the Preparing Hearts for His Glory guide. But this is a really good book, and so is the other one, the Woolly Mammoth book. And I'll link that in the description below because I can't think of the name right now. But this was very good. There's lots of pictures. It's a fun story. It's very interesting to learn about the Ice Age. And this is definitely a Christian book. So it's based off of young Earth. The Ice Age happened after Noah's Ark, after the flood and the change in the atmosphere. It's very interesting, especially having gone to public school myself as a kid. I didn't get to learn about the Christian view of the Ice Age. I think it was actually kind of glossed over as I went through school. I never learned in detail what anybody thought about the Ice Age. So very fascinating for myself as well as my daughter. And then we have this one. This is Noah's Ark. This is another wonderful book. There's lots of gorgeous pictures in it as well. And in the middle, there's actually a fold out. I'll show it to you. There's a fold out of Noah's Ark here. Both sides fold out, which I probably can't show you in this very well, but it's a very good story, and it is on CD as well, and I do have the CD, so we could actually listen to this. And on the CD they add in there's somebody that's narrating the story, obviously, and then there's also sound effects that they have in it. So when it gets to talking about the animals in the ark, you can hear the animals in the background. It gives it it's nice to listen to or read. Either way, we've done it both ways. We've read over this book actually probably 3 times in our house. So my daughter has heard this story before, and we read it again this year, and she had no problem reading it again. I actually gave her the option if she still wanted to read it, even though we've already read it in the past, and she said yes. So that is a wonderful book as well. Now, these are some books that she has read. My daughter has read herself as an independent history reading. She read the 5,000-Year-Old Puzzle, and this is a fun book as well. There's lots of pictures, and they're talking about Tut, I believe. It's King Tut. So they have this kid is just, he's able to get in on finding this pharaoh's tomb, and it's got all these kind of postcards and fun things along with it. It's a good read. It was interesting. My daughter enjoyed this one. Also, she has done Arctic Tundra. This is one of her science books that she's reading herself. For her science, she has reading assigned, and then she also has some hands-on experiments she does, as well as notebooking. So she'll have a notebook page one day, she'll have an experiment to do another day, and another day she'll have some questions to answer based on the reading, and it's been very good. There's a lot of pictures in these books and a lot of good information. This is a nonfiction book. This isn't a story. It tells about the animals, and it's based off of if you had a square in the Arctic tundra, what you would find in that square, the different animals and plants, and what the soil's like, things like that. And it's very interesting. My daughter has enjoyed it. She likes the pictures. They'll draw some of the pictures in their student notebook, and this has been very good. And Heart of Dakota uses a lot of these one small square books, and I highly recommend them because they're good books. They're enjoyable books. They're not a story, but they are full of beautiful pictures, and it reads well. It's not dry and boring. It is a good living book still, even though it is a nonfiction. So that is Arctic Tundra. She finished this one, and it was a very good. So these last books I'm going to share with you are from my older daughter's book, her guide in Heart of Dakota, which is Creation to Christ. These are ones we've already finished this year, and I will show you each of them. So we read Archimedes. We read this together. This was a good book. I did find it, I almost feel like at certain points it might have been good for her to read it, because I felt like it gets into some kind of scientific and mathematical things towards the end, which it was fine to read together, but I kind of felt like I wanted her to own this more and not just have me telling her. Well, we had to look at it together. She absolutely couldn't sit across the room. She had to be sitting with me, and we were looking at the pictures together. Very good book. I really liked reading about Archimedes, so did she. Eureka! We found out where that comes from. This was very enjoyable. This was a science book, again. No, it wasn't. This was a read-aloud book that we did together. It's a history read-aloud that goes along with the history she was reading. And actually, I have one of her books that I'm going to show you next. This is one of her history books that she reads herself. So in Creation to Christ, they actually read the history themselves. And then there are read-alouds that are scheduled as well. And one option is to do history read-alouds that go along with the history, the time period, and that is what we're doing right now together. So, and that's where Archimedes came from. Archimedes was one of those history-based books that we read together. She finished this book, Ancient Greece. Now, she started Creation to Christ last year. She is finishing it up this year. So she finished this book so far this year, Ancient Greece, and this was very good because it is a living book. It is a story, in a story form. It tells you about Greece. You follow along with this little boy that finds himself in ancient Greece, and it talks about what it looks like there, what the culture is like, what the people are like, and it's told through his story where he stays with his family, and he learns from this little boy and this family. It's very interesting. It is a good read. There are not pictures in this book, but it is, you have no problem imagining what's going on. It is well written, and I really enjoyed this as well. I read this before my daughter because I wanted to read it as well. It was a quick read for me, but she really enjoyed this. And now she's actually on to Rome. This same Streams of History, she's reading about Rome now, and I'll share that when she's finished with it. And then we have City. We read this together. This is another one of the history read-alouds, and I really like these Macaulay books. There's a whole series of them. Last year we read one about the pyramids. That was not part of Heart of Dakota, but we did read that last year. And now we've read City, and it's very interesting because he shares this. This was not a real city. This was just based off of what they did, and there's great illustrations in this, and he goes over how the city is planned and built from the beginning all the way till it's full. So this imaginary city is called Verbonia, and he talks about the people that lived there, how they went about designing the city, how they built all of the structures in the city, and it's a really good book. I really enjoyed this, and so did my daughter. I have several of his other books as well that we'll probably look at in the future. I'm not sure if there's any more that are scheduled in Heart of Dakota, but this was very good city. So this was our Roman city. We got to learn about how it's built, how it works. We learned about the plumbing system. We learned about their public baths and all of that, and it was very fascinating. We also read Cleopatra. This was another one that we read together. I read aloud to my daughter. We learned all about Cleopatra. This is Diane Stanley and Peter Venema. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but this was a wonderful book, and there's lots of illustrations again. And a lot of this story comes from Plutarch. She based her writings off of what Plutarch had written about Cleopatra and Antony. And it was very fascinating again. My daughter thought she was something. She was a character for sure, but this was a great read. I highly recommend this as well. Very colorful and interesting. The story is fascinating, but written for kids, so there's nothing questionable in here, but it was very good. So we have enjoyed so many of these books, and we're continuing to enjoy books, and I think I'll do another check-in in a couple of months and share with you what we have finished in that time. If you want to find out more about Heart of Dakota, I'm going to link a video I did about Beyond Little Hearts for His Glory. And my next video I plan on doing, looking more in depth at preparing Hearts for His Glory and looking at how it's gone so far this year. I have done another Preparing Hearts for His Glory video as well, but this one I'm just going to take more of a look inside what my daughter has accomplished and what our day looks like. So please like and subscribe so you can catch that video, and I hope you are enjoying some wonderful books in your home as well. Thank you for watching this video today. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your school year.